Well, and you thought it was auspicious that 19 and Jiro wore baggy pants. Here's why, and more. Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, when it comes to the likes of video games, a lot of people know the drill when it comes to Dragon Ball games specifically. Really, in most places, you're lucky that you can get a Dragon Ball game with more than 8 out of 10. But aside from that, it's usually quite formulaic. It's the Raditz to Boo adventure, time and time again, with the occasional what-if scenario here or there. That's what we had for many years. Then it became all about getting jpegs of characters in Legends and Dokkan Battle. I sank way too much time and resources into that. But then we did have the likes of FighterZ and Kakarot, following the trinity of that and Xenoverse. Nice little trilogy of games. But for the most part, new characters were few and far between. But the ones that did get added have become part of the community, quite fondly so, such as Chornoa, Android 21, and Towa. Beginning to see a pattern as to why exactly they are so well acknowledged. In any case, there are some characters that are made for Dragon Ball properties which don't exactly get their time to shine. In fact, you'd be even surprised that they were made for official properties at all. For a lot of these, you might be looking at them bamboozled thinking that, oh, surely that's fan-made, or, well, that looks like it more belongs in One Piece than Dragon Ball, but no. These off-the-beaten-track peoples and animals and robots and whatnot are part of fully licensed products for games that are related to Toriyama's vision. Whether or not the man had something to do with their creation wholesale, or even their design or inception, for some of them are a little bit up in the air. But yeah, Dragon Ball video games often offer us some wild scenarios and matchups, of course when they're not reminding us how quickly Raditz was brushed away from the equation altogether, though rarely do these crazy circumstances become the main topic of any particular title. We've alluded to how they could categorize certain things, like into battle techniques for video games, or what would be our ideal production for a video game in other entries for this channel. But sometimes you gotta join in on the madness. Check out the original material that they are adding in. See if we can actually be inspired for future creations. I mean, you gotta hand it to the lesser known game titles when they give things a go. But other video game developers who are fans of the original content are very much trying to add their own brick to the castle of madness, which can really make a difference to whether we like a game or love a game. Remind us of the show's original mantra. So without further ado, let's start with all of these Dragon Ball video game characters that you probably haven't heard about. In fact, there's a couple that we didn't even hear about. So, as you probably might have been wondering from the title of this very video, let's get this one immediately squared away. Android 19,000! And of course the other Red Pants Army androids. Yes, we're not making that up, there is a Red Pants Army. Already you might be asking some questions. Dragon Ball Online? No, that's not a fan-made game. This was a legitimate project made for the Southeast Asian market, which had a lot of help from Toriyama himself. He made a lot of the lore for this series. To this day, he is now recycling, and I'm pretty sure he is very glad that he made this back in the day. Now, he can just go back to it and not have to do another thing. But this is something I really discuss more in my video about this game in detail, so you can check that out up top at your leisure. One of the major components, I mean essentially the big bads of the game that you might have heard about from time to time, are the notorious Red Pants Army, of course led by Dr. Jiro's clone. Somehow. But did you know that they had their own androids as well? Well, I mean, okay, it kind of makes sense since that clone of Jiro would clone Jiro's own modus operandi, right? So naturally, here comes Android 19,000, who kind of looks as if Android 19 and 16 had a baby. I mean, it stands to reason, because in theory, these two droids are the epitome of Jiro's research and experiments, so in Jiro's clone's eyes, this is the ultimate creation. Huh, yes, it was his ultimate work, so instead of limiting it to just one facsimile, there are in fact multiple copies of that mechanical menace, and we can tell even less in the terms of its personality than even the original counterpart, which had no personality. This is now not just one android, but now one example of something that could easily fit into the second Cooler movie if it could, but of course, without the big getaster. But it does give us an ultimate proof that Android 19 was not just a phase. It was just a little bit ahead of its time. But other than 19,000 here, there are such droids that the Timebreakers use, like Android 8000 here and its variants, which looks like as if Berta and Eta had a very angry baby. Now, okay, granted, I think this is supposed to be more of a resemblance to Frankenstein's creature than even Android 8 was, but still, this is one angry baby. Like, I'd love to see this up against Major Metallotron someday. Now, technically, the Red Pants are working with the Time Breakers here, you know, Towa and Mira's group, but this one lacks the insignia of the former, so it's kind of confusing. Is this some kind of secret project or something, or did the Time Breakers steal it? We're not quite sure. But the last android that we will mention here is called Android 9. But why down to single figures? Well, this is more in line with the Android 8 school of thought, as he is simply a mechanical version of Commander Red, the original Red Ribbon Army boss. And this is actually fully mechanical, to be exact. Makes sense really, since Commander Red would be long gone by now when Dragon Ball Online takes place in age 1000. And also 8 comes after 9. And while he has the same body type, he is huge here and towers over most of the characters, which, in a pretty ironic way, fulfills the desire of the original Commander Red, to be taller. I mean, he's not just tall here, he's huge! But we'll leave the Red Pants army for now, and move on to other wacky video game characters, and especially since the Red Pants army are not the only armies that we're going to be talking about today. There's of course the much less known MB army members to be talked about here. So, fun fact for you all. The major members of this organisation were actually designed by Toriyama himself, all through the process. And this was back in his heyday, when he was much more active with such projects. And the character you see here is called the MB Army General, and they come from Dragon Ball Shenron no Nazo on the NES. And this is really back in the day. In fact, this is probably one of the first Dragon Ball games ever. But have you never heard of that game? Well, maybe because this game never made it to the US, or at least it didn't make it wholesale. You see, its localized version did make it to the US, but it had all the Dragon Ball references taken out. So, in the West, this game is infamously known as Dragon Power. Yeah, that one. Oh, yeah, and also, Roshi, in this game, whatever he's called, really loves sandwiches. I mean, it's not the weirdest censorship I've heard about, but it's certainly worth noting. But I mean, I suppose when pixelated a sandwich looks like ladies' magazine, I don't know. This isn't your beer and OJ type of censorship. However, we really must get back to the MB Army. They are the main antagonists of this game. It's kind of like the movie version of the Red Ribbon Army if you want to find some similarities. But you could even argue that these goons are sort of the prototype for the Ribbons, whilst Toriyama was gathering his ideas for the manga and whatnot. It also kind of makes you think that Cooler was the movie version of Freezer and Janemba's the movie version of Boo, but, you know, back to the MB thing, because for their motivation, oh, it's easy. This was obviously because they're mostly going for the Dragon Balls, which, to be fair, is sort of what everyone was doing back in the day. And the final boss of this game is the Asura Robot, but sadly, this concept art here, despite it looking cool, didn't make it to the final game. But to be fair, the design really resembles Giru from GT, so perhaps maybe the inspiration was not lost to the mists of time? The star of this group is without a doubt Krillin. It's the #1 assassin of the universe, and he appears to be basically an alien version of Krillin, in name as well as appearance. Krillalian? Oh, and in Dragon Power, he's not called Krillin, obviously. He is called Roundhead. Okay. And yeah, Hit Buddy, you really don't have a lot of competition in the donut industry from this guy. But in all seriousness, these are some pretty cool designs. I mean, even Krillion's kind of cute. And we gladly wish to remind the internet of their existence. But wait, here comes a new challenger! And not only do we have a new challenger, but he has a PhD to boot. It's Dr. Challenger, everybody! I mean, come on, to be fair, we weren't making anything up. This is a new person, and he just so happens to be called Challenger. Dr. Challenger comes from the more Western-developed Legacy of Goku series for the Game Boy Advance. It's always been a fascination to many fans, actually, as it's got its own little micro-world, expanding upon the lore in its own direction, with many little things that are unique to itself and nowhere else, with time making the game series much more of an interesting and endearing title to many. But one of the funniest examples from this game, I mean, this is the one that practically inspired this very video, is, well, Dr. Challenger here from Boo's Fury. Basically, the guy works for the Royal Science Academy, and Kid Trunks has to do some sort of mini-quest. He has to help Dr. Challenger in saving his colleagues from certain doom and whatnot. But this isn't from the likes of Majin Buu or any sort of menace that has come about from Boo's Fury, get it? But no, Dr. Challenger and his colleagues have to be saved from mummies. What is this, movie 12? Also, for some reason, you can just randomly find Ox King's hat in a pyramid. That I don't understand. I mean, did Grandpa Ox have some sort of Indiana Jones-like past in the universe that we didn't know about? Anyway, when Trunks saves his friends and gets the headdress of the pharaoh Totenhotep, he is gifted with the 7-star Dragon Ball, so you know, it's just gathering Dragon Balls, so it doesn't really matter. Though it does make me think, if Totenhotep and Bandages from the anime knew each other back in the day, you know, when they were alive, might have been a nice bit of lore there for them to catch up from beyond the grave. Oh well. The legacy of Goku game has also brought us such legendary characters as King Triceratops and the Warlord, who looks like someone put way too many cybernetics on Nappa. Let's move on. Now, at the start of this video, we promised you fusions, so let's take a look at fusions for you. I mean, not just fusions, but also the very good game Dragon Ball Fusions, which we all hope someday will get an HD Switch port. One day. You know what's better than regular Jarko? And if Sophie, if you're watching this, you'd be saying, no Jarko, it's Great Jarko! Yes, he's actually called Great Jarko in the game. Obviously though, he is a fusion between Gohan and Jarko, and although his biography mentions that he might be questionable in many ways, he is a super elite protector of justice. Essentially, he's just Jarko but with an actually good work ethic for once. But let's not rest on our laurels here, there's even more. There's another one even better than the Great Jarko. There is also Billabong! And yes, it's very much Zarbon inside Dodoria. As mentioned in their profile, it's Zarbon and Dodoria fused. And Zarbon hates ugly things, so how will he work with Dodoria? The truth is, they're both ugly, so it might just work. Yikes, fusions, you can really be savage at times, jeez. I mean, I guess fusing with Dodoria brought out the best within Zarbon, but ouch. Oh yeah, how about Chalman, who is a fusion between Chaozu and a Cyberman? Oh, I get it, because they both... Oh, man, they are savage in the profiles, aren't they? So maybe we should approach something that's a little more wholesome? Yes, Margin Hercule. Now this one does seem a little more logical and something that would probably happen in the fullness of time. I mean, technically, if you were to look to GT, you did have that moment when Hercule hid inside Majin Buu to escape danger, you know, when the Earth was in peril from Baby. But that sadly led to no physical appearances changing for Buu. Shame, actually. I would have really liked to have seen Buu with a beard. But now we can, thanks to the 3DS title! The two friends can now work together in a much more dynamic way. And apparently, they are pretty powerful in this configuration too. Go figure. Next time I play this game, I'll give this fusion a try. And the last but not least thing by a long shot are these very interesting oddities. Playable Gods of Destruction. Yeah, we just so happen to have some different GOD-like characters here. So yeah, this comes from Dragon Ball Heroes, and it's its own can of worms, right? But interestingly enough, these are actually playable God of Destruction avatars you can play as. Yeah, you can play as these three. And how they came about though is mostly just conjecture, but my best guess, if I had to guess, is that they're former candidates for becoming GODs for other universes, which they either didn't make the cut to become them, or maybe they were Gods of Destruction from the 6 other universes, which Zeno wiped out all those years ago. But let's try and talk about what we do know, and sadly, it's very limited. This one here is called Caesar, and while we cannot tell anything about his lore or story, or even whatever universe he comes from, well, he's a thing. Vegeta's line persona, perhaps? There's also Saria, who looks like a rabbity version of Gadget from Rescue Rangers, who decided to jack in rescuing people, become a GOD, and now, ironically, destroys people. And then there's Shandy. Yes. Who looks like an adorable younger brother to Beerus and Champa. Oh yeah, and the joke about the name Shandy, because in the UK, a Shandy is basically a beer mixed with lemonade or limeade. I get it, it's a less and smaller potent alcoholic beverage. Aww. I really don't think we should even try to explain their origins even further though. They're really just made to give players the experience of playing as a God of Destruction without trying to break any law or being like Beerus, something that doesn't have any ramifications for the main timeline. You know, keep their antics self-contained within a game. But we are putting them right at the end of the video because at the time of writing this script, we did not know that these even existed. But what do you folks think about all of this. Did you know any of these characters existed? But what do you folks think? Did you know any of these characters existed beforehand? Do you know some even more obscure DB video game characters that we've just simply forgotten about? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!